Your life as the child of a narcissistic mother, what it's like to be every level of the person who had to rebuild themselves from scratch. She is calling you selfish. Not for the first time. Not for the 100th time. You have stopped counting. You are 31 years old. You have your own apartment. Your own job. Your own life that you built piece by piece in the years since you understood what your childhood actually was. And she is on the phone telling you that you are selfish because you cannot come home this weekend. Because you have plans. Because you said no. The word no. You said it quietly. Clearly. Without anger. And the phone call has now been going for 47 minutes. You are sitting on the floor of your kitchen. Not because you sat down. Because at some point your legs stopped and the floor was there. You are 31 years old and your mother's voice can still do this to you. Can still reach through the phone and find the exact nerve, the one installed in childhood, the one that fires guilt before your brain has processed what she said. She is crying now. Not because she is sad. You know the difference. You learned the difference in increments over 3 decades. This is the crying that happens when no is not being reversed quickly enough. You look at the wall in front of you. You think about who you were at 8 years old, at 14, at 20. The different versions of yourself that were shaped in that house, by that voice, by the specific gravity of a parent who needed you to be her mirror rather than your own person. You think about what it costs to become someone who can sit on this floor and not immediately say yes just to make the crying stop. It cost everything. And you are still paying. Stay until level 8. Because the thing that happens when you finally understand what was done to you, and what you do with that understanding, is the most important part of this story. And I need to know in the comments, did any part of this feel familiar? You don't have to share details. Just tell me if you've been here. Because you are not alone and you need to know that. Level 1. The mirror child. You are the good one. This is what she tells you. This is what she tells everyone. You are her good one, her special one, the one who understands her in a way nobody else does. You are 5 years old and you are already her emotional support system, and you don't know that this is wrong because wrong requires a comparison and you have no comparison. This is simply what a mother is. This is simply what love feels like. The house operates around her moods. You learn this before you learn to read. You wake up in the morning and before your feet touch the floor you are already reading the atmospheric pressure of the household. Is she bright today? Is she dark? Has something happened that will require careful navigation? You develop a sensitivity to her emotional state that is so finely tuned it functions like a sixth sense. You become, without knowing the word for it, her emotional barometer. The first rule of this childhood: your feelings are not the subject. Her feelings are the subject. When you are sad, the conversation turns to how your sadness affects her. When you are happy, she evaluates whether your happiness is the right kind, whether it reflects well on her, whether it includes her sufficiently. Your inner life is real, but it has no official standing in this house. You learn to manage her before you learn to manage yourself. When she is sad, you comfort her. When she is angry, you de-escalate. When she is proud of something you've done, you understand that the pride is not about you. It is about her, about what your achievement reflects back onto her. You are not the child being raised. You are the mirror being polished. At 8 years old you tell her about a problem you're having at school. A social problem. A friendship that has gone wrong in the specific painful way that friendships go wrong at 8. She listens for approximately 90 seconds. Then she begins to talk about a friendship she had in 7th grade that ended badly. She talks about it for 20 minutes. Your problem, the reason you came to her, is not mentioned again. You sit with her and you listen and you make the right noises and you help her process her 7th grade memory. On the walk back to your room you think, I'll figure out the school thing myself. You always figure things out yourself. That is the beginning of a coping pattern that will serve you and damage you in equal measure for the next 23 years. Comment below. Did you have a parent who turned every conversation back to themselves? You don't have to say more than yes. Just let other people in this comment section know they're not alone. Level 2. The performer. At 12 the performance becomes explicit. Not to you. You still don't have the framework. You just know that certain things are required of you in public. A specific presentation of family happiness, of her parenting, of your gratitude for everything she does. The performance is never discussed. It is simply expected, and the consequences of not delivering it are significant enough that you deliver it without being asked. She needs you to be evidence. Evidence that she is a good mother. Evidence that her sacrifices have produced a worthy result. Evidence that the story she tells about herself, devoted, misunderstood, endlessly giving, is accurate. You are not a child being parented. You are a supporting character in a story she is telling about herself. You become very good at the performance. You are polite at family gatherings in the specific way she requires. You say the right things about how much she does for you. You deflect questions about yourself back to her with the expertise of a professional. Other adults comment on what a mature child you are. They mean it as a compliment. You know what it actually is. The rule at level 2. In a narcissistic family system, every member is assigned a role. The golden child performs perfection. The scapegoat absorbs blame. The invisible child disappears. You are the golden child, which feels like love but is actually the most demanding role in the system. The golden child carries the weight of the parent's self-image. The golden child is never allowed to fail, never allowed to be ordinary, never allowed to be simply themselves without the performance layer. You get good grades. Not because you love learning, though you do. Because bad grades would be a crisis that was about her, not you. A bad grade would mean a conversation about what you were doing to her, what you were putting her through, how hard she has worked, and how this is how you repay her. You get good grades. You get them again the next year. You will get them for 6 more years after that. And somewhere in the middle of all that getting of good grades, you lose track of what you actually like. What you actually want. What you would choose if the choosing were genuinely yours. Level 3. The doubter. At 16 something shifts. Not dramatically. Not a single moment of revelation. A slow accumulation of small observations that begin to produce a question you don't have the courage to fully form yet. You go to your friend's house for dinner. Her mother asks her how her day was and then listens to the answer. Just listens. Asks follow-up questions. Doesn't redirect. Doesn't insert her own day into the space. Just receives what her daughter is telling her. You sit at that table and you feel something you can't name. Later you will understand it was grief. The specific grief of seeing what you didn't have by watching someone else have it. You go home and your mother asks how dinner was and you say fine, and she says she was alone all evening and it was very quiet and she had been looking forward to you being home, and you say I'm sorry, and she says she's not trying to make you feel guilty, she just wants you to know how it is for her. You lie in bed that night and for the first time the question surfaces clearly. Is this normal? You don't answer it. It's too large. The implications of answering it are too large. If this isn't normal, then everything you've understood about yourself and your relationship with her requires reconsideration, and you don't have the framework or the support to do that reconsideration at 16 in her house. So you file the question. You keep performing. The rule at level 3. The child of a narcissist begins to see the system from the outside at the moment they encounter something different. The comparison is what creates the first crack in the narrative. You cannot see the water you're swimming in until you see air. You saw air at your friend's dinner table. You can't unsee it. But you are 16 and you live in her house and the question gets filed and you get up the next morning and you perform. Level 4. The escapee. You leave for university at 18 and for the first 3 weeks you don't know what to do with the quiet. Not silence. The dormitory is loud. Quiet in the sense that nobody in this building needs you to manage their emotional state. Nobody is monitoring your mood for what it means about them. Nobody requires the performance. You sit in your room on the 3rd night and you feel something you will later identify as the absence of vigilance. The constant background hum of emotional monitoring that you have carried since before you could name it, it's not gone but it's dimmed. For the first time in your life, you exist in a space where you are not primarily someone's mirror. It should feel like freedom. It feels terrifying. Because the vigilance was not just a burden. It was also your identity. The thing you were good at. The thing that made you necessary. Without someone to manage, without someone whose emotional weather you are reading and responding to, you don't immediately know who you are. The calls come every day. Sometimes twice. She misses you. She can't sleep. She doesn't know how to be in the house alone. Did you know your leaving would affect her this way? She thought you did. She doesn't say you should come home, she just describes, in detail, what your absence is doing to her. You start calling first. Not because you want to. To control the timing. To call when you are ready rather than when the phone interrupts something. This is the first small act of boundary setting in your life, and you don't recognize it as that. You just think you're being considerate. The rule at level 4. Distance is the first medicine and the first complication. Distance reveals the relationship for what it is because the dynamic requires physical proximity to maintain its full force. But distance also activates the guilt that was installed in childhood, the guilt that says your needs are selfish, your distance is abandonment, your independence is betrayal. You do well at university. Not perfectly. You lose 2 weeks of the first semester to a fog that you don't have a name for yet. But you make friends. Real friends, not the carefully managed relationships you maintained at home. People who know you without the performance layer. One of them says to you in the second year, during a late-night conversation that goes longer than you expect, "You know you're allowed to disagree with your mother, right?" You laugh. But the question stays. Comment below, if you left home and felt guilty for being okay, you're not alone. The guilt is not evidence that leaving was wrong. It's evidence that you were taught to feel responsible for someone else's feelings. That's the difference. Drop a heart if you needed to hear that. Level 5, the researcher. You are 24 and you find the word. Not in therapy, not yet. In a book someone leaves in a common room at work. You pick it up during a lunch break because the cover is interesting. You read the first chapter. You read the second. You sit in the common room for an hour and a half reading, and periodically you have to stop because the description of what you're reading is so precise, so accurate, so exactly the architecture of your childhood that you feel simultaneously seen and unsteady. Narcissistic personality disorder. The word is not a diagnosis of your mother. You have no way to diagnose your mother. The word is a framework, a description of a pattern that produces specific experiences in the children raised within it. The golden child. The emotional labor. The moods that structure the household. The conversations that return always to her. The guilt. The performance. The specific exhaustion of being someone's mirror for 18 years. You read the word and the word reads you back. The rule at level 5. Naming the thing is the most painful and most necessary step. Because naming it means accepting that the relationship was not what you were told it was. It means the story she told about her devotion, her sacrifice, her love, that story was not the whole story, and maybe not the true story. And that is a grief that arrives not as a single wave, but as a tide that keeps returning. You grieve the mother you didn't have. This is different from grieving a mother who died. She is alive. She is calling. She is describing what your silence is doing to her. But the mother you needed, the one who would have listened at the dinner table, the one who would have made space for your 8th grade problems without redirecting to her 7th grade memories, that mother was never there. You grieve her anyway. You also start to understand yourself differently. The hypervigilance. The difficulty identifying your own feelings. The reflex to manage other people's emotions. The specific terror of conflict. The way you shrink in certain situations. The way you perform rather than simply exist. These are not character flaws. They are adaptations. Strategies developed in childhood to survive an environment that required them. They worked. They also followed you out of the house. Level 6. The boundary setter. At 26 you say no for the first time. Not the small no's you'd been practicing. A real no. She wants you to cancel a trip you have planned, a trip with friends, the first real holiday you've taken in 3 years, because she has decided she needs you home that weekend. Not for any crisis. Because she wants you there. You say no. The call lasts 2 hours. She cries. She reminds you of everything she has done. She asks if you realize what this does to her. She says she doesn't know who you've become. She says people have been filling your head with things. She says the old you would never have done this. You stay on the line. You do not yell. You do not capitulate. You say, "I love you. I'm going on this trip." You go on the trip. You spend the first day of it checking your phone every 20 minutes. You have 3 missed calls by the time you land. You call her back from the hotel and the call is difficult, and then you put the phone down and you sit on the balcony and you watch the sun go down over a place you have never been before, and you feel something that takes you a while to identify. You feel like yourself. Not the performed self. Not the mirror. Just yourself, in a place you chose, with people you chose, doing something you chose. The rule at level 6. The first boundary is the hardest because it confirms what you suspected, that the relationship was conditional on your compliance. A healthy parent responds to a boundary with adjustment. A narcissistic parent responds to a boundary as an attack. The response to your no tells you everything about what the relationship actually was and actually is. You begin therapy. Not because you're broken. Because you have a lot of unlearning to do and you don't want to do it alone, and because the person you are building deserves the best tools available. The therapist says something in the third session that you write down and keep. She says, "You didn't fail to be a good enough child. She failed to be a good enough parent. Those are two different failures, and only one of them is yours." You read that sentence 11 times. Level 7. The Rebuilder. You are 28 and you are in the process of becoming someone you recognize. Not someone new. Someone original. The person you might have been if the first 18 years had gone differently. You are finding out, slowly and sometimes painfully, what you actually like. What you actually think. What you actually want from your life when the wanting is genuinely yours and not shaped by what would be most useful to her narrative. You like mornings. You didn't know this. The house was always her territory in the morning. Her mood, her requirements, the emotional weather you had to read before you'd even eaten. Your mornings now belong to you. Coffee and quiet and the specific pleasure of a day beginning on your terms. You like your own company. You didn't know this either. You spent so many years performing for an audience of one that solitude felt like failure. Now it feels like restoration. The rule at level 7. Healing from a narcissistic parent is not about hating them. It is about disentangling who you actually are from who you were shaped to be in service of their needs. The anger is real and it has its place. But the deeper work is constructing an identity that is genuinely yours, preferences, values, ways of being in the world that come from inside rather than from the performance that was required of you. The relationship with her continues. Not unchanged. You are not the same person who called first to control the timing, who performed at family gatherings, who managed her moods as a primary function of existing. The relationship is smaller now. More bounded. You give what you genuinely have to give and you protect what you need to protect. She does not fully accept this version of you. You are learning that her acceptance is not the condition of your validity. That is the hardest lesson and the most important one. You go to therapy. You read. You talk to people who understand. You build friendships that are mutual, where both people's feelings have standing, where the conversation doesn't always return to the same person, where you are known rather than performed. You are learning, for the first time, how to receive care. This turns out to be harder than giving it. You practice anyway. Level 8. The person you were always meant to be. You are 31 and you are sitting on the kitchen floor. Your mother is on the phone. She has been on the phone for 47 minutes. She is crying the crying that happens when no is not being reversed quickly enough. You know everything about this moment. You have studied it, survived it, been dismantled by it and rebuilt from it. You know the mechanism. You know the guilt nerve it's activating. You know that the crying is a communication strategy, not an expression of genuine pain. You know that the 47 minutes is designed to exhaust your boundary until compliance becomes easier than continuation. You know all of this. And your legs still gave out. The floor was still there. Because knowing the system doesn't make you immune to it. Especially when the system was installed before you had language. Especially when the installer was the person who was supposed to keep you safe. The rule at level 8. Healing is not the absence of the wound. It is the presence of the person who can sit with the wound without being destroyed by it. You are on the floor. You are not destroyed. These are both true simultaneously, and that is what 31 years of this looks like when you've done the work. You say, "Mom, I have to go now." She says what she says. You say, "I love you. I'll call you later in the week." You end the call. You sit on the floor for a while longer. Not because you're broken. Because you're allowed to. Because nobody in this apartment needs you to get up before you're ready. Because your feelings have standing here. Because this is your space and your time and your life. Then you get up. You make tea. You sit at your kitchen table and you think about the 8-year-old who came home with a problem and left with someone else's memory. You think about the 16-year-old at the dinner table who saw, for the first time, what listening actually looked like. You think about the 18-year-old who sat in a dormitory room not knowing what to do with the absence of vigilance. You think about all the versions of yourself that got you here. You are not finished. Healing is not a destination you arrive at and unpack. It is a practice. A daily, sometimes hourly practice of choosing yourself, your real self, not the performed one, in the face of everything that was installed to make you choose differently. But you are here. You finished the call without losing yourself. That is not nothing. That is everything. The cycle, but it doesn't have to continue. Somewhere, a child is reading her mother's emotional weather before her feet touch the floor in the morning. She is 5 years old. She doesn't have the words. She just knows that the household runs on someone else's feelings and that her job, her primary, most important job, is to keep those feelings stable. She doesn't know about the grief she will feel at 16 at someone else's dinner table. She doesn't know about the words she will find at 24. She doesn't know about the kitchen floor at 31. She doesn't know that the exhaustion she feels, the specific exhaustion of being someone's mirror before she is her own person, is not normal, is not love, is not what childhood is supposed to feel like. She will find out. Not because the cycle is inevitable. It isn't. The cycle breaks. People break it every day, in therapists' offices and late-night conversations and books found in common rooms and comment sections where someone finally says out loud what they've been carrying alone. The cycle breaks when someone names it. When someone says, "This was not okay." When someone chooses, imperfectly and repeatedly and at great personal cost, to become someone other than a mirror. You did that. You are doing that. That 5-year-old will have a chance because people like you exist and speak and refuse to pretend the floor didn't happen. The cycle doesn't have to continue. It starts with you deciding it doesn't. That is what every level of this life looks like. Every performance. Every floor. Every cup of tea after the call ends. Now I need you in the comments. Not your story if you don't want to share it. Just, did you recognize something here? Because the most important thing about this video is not the information. It's the moment when someone realizes they're not the only one who grew up thinking this was just what family felt like. If you are in this right now, if the relationship is active and you are trying to figure out what to do, please consider speaking to a therapist who understands narcissistic family dynamics. You don't have to diagnose anyone. You just have to describe your experience to someone trained to help you understand it. Recommended books if you want to go deeper: Will I Ever Be Good Enough? By Carol McBride. Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay Gibson. The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. These 3 books have helped millions of people understand what happened to them and what to do next. If this one reached something in you, subscribe. Share it with one person who needs to hear that the floor is not the end of the story. You got up. You made tea. That matters more than you know. See you in the next one.